Hi, my name is Ophi YouTube Videos. I am a feminist and a lesbian, and I make conversational commentary videos about both of those things. And in many such cases with my videos, I should lay down and go to bed, but I really want to talk about something, and that's what I'm gonna do. If you somehow have not already been concerned about bathroom bills and laws targeting trans participation in sports, now is the time to plug into why that is such a concern. Obviously, I'm not approaching this from the perspective of a trans person. I do know many amazing trans YouTubers who talk about topics like this, and for this one in specific, I will link to Jessie Genders in the description below just to start you off. But again, because I am a cisgender lesbian, it feels important for me to talk about these things from that perspective, and for a few reasons. Before I get to those, though, to the trans people in my audience, this is a video trying to explain to people who might not be plugged in about this already why and how bathroom bans are bad. You likely already know this, you likely already are scared and concerned, and unless you think that it would be helpful for you to hear me validate that and try to whip other cis people into shape to defend you, you may just want to check the timestamps and skip to the end of this video, or come back when I talk about something else, like I'm going to talk about political lesbianism for an hour and a half, very soon, like tomorrow. But as for my reasons for wanting to address this, as I get to in that upcoming video, very upcoming Friday, I think, I'm very suspicious of and vocal against the radicalization that a lot of lesbians can find in radical feminist spaces, because those spaces present as if they are very loving of and welcoming of lesbians, specifically so that they can fracture those lesbians away from solidarity with the rest of the gay and trans community. So that is one reason that I want to model that it is extremely possible not to fall into that radicalization, even if you are a cisgender lesbian. And another reason is that I just want to be here as a normie lesbian telling you that despite the fact that transphobic radical feminists constantly use me and people like me as a talking point, as an idea of somebody that they think that they are defending or protecting, not a single one of those assholes trying to keep trans people from peeing in public is speaking for me. Not a single one of them. These bathroom bans, this transphobic rhetoric, it's being done in my name somehow. In the name of all women, really, but often very specifically in the name of lesbians, which is why, though I don't feel like obligated in the sense that I think anybody would be mad at me for not making this video, I do feel called to just use my face and my voice and my platform right now to say that this is wrong, that the people who are attempting to use me as a bludgeon to beat trans women with are wrong, that the people who are attempting to push trans people out of daily life are wrong. As is extremely obvious from my recent content, I live in the United States. We just had an election, you might have heard about it, and one of the smaller races in that election was a seat in Congress. And a trans woman named Sarah McBride won that election, becoming the first out transgender member of Congress. She has not yet been sworn in, and she will not be until January, but she very much won her race and will be the representative for the state of Delaware. Sarah McBride is the highest trans elected office holder in the United States. We've never had a trans congressperson before. We've also never had a trans senator. All of which means that Republican congresspeople have never directly had to interface with transgender colleagues who were elected on the same level as them, but not that they have never worked with or around transgender people before. So despite the fact that there have certainly already been members of staff, press, visitors, and whoever else ends up in the Capitol who were transgender and using the correct bathrooms, the one that matched their identity and their preference, there has never been an issue before now. Now that a trans woman has been elected and that they know for sure that there is a trans woman with a name who they can make a big, humiliating example out of, they're doing that. It's Mike Johnson too, but a lot of this is back and forth with a Republican and piece of shit named Nancy Mace, who I definitely didn't know the name of a few days ago, but who, unlike Sarah McBride, is already in Congress. And Nancy has introduced bathroom legislation to try to effectively bar her new colleague from using any shared and gendered spaces with her, even though Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House and a known transphobe, is already also working on bathroom legislation. Nancy Mace has gone on the news to misgender and denigrate Sarah, has said that Sarah McBride does not get a say in any of this bathroom legislation, and I think maybe most tellingly, like a level of saying the quiet part out loud that was genuinely somehow surprising to me, she mentioned being offended and literally said, in addition to the man in a dress stereotype against trans women, that she is offended by Sarah McBride thinking that she is Nancy Mace's equal. I want to say I understand that a lot of trans people have what I think is a well-deserved frustration at Sarah's kind of immediate statement of compliance, and I am in no way telling them not to feel that way. You can even tell me about it in the comment section. I hear you and I understand you, and I think I would also feel betrayed in your shoes, even though I also understand the argument that could be made that Sarah's stated intention to respect the bathroom rules that known transphobe and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said as compliance is compliance as a technique. And again, to speak to people feeling betrayed and left behind and why they feel that way, Sarah using polite compliance as a technique is, of course, up to her and her own decision to make. But if she's truly asking her Democratic colleagues not to speak up on her behalf, while Sarah is the most public and visible target of this particular bathroom ban, she's not actually the one who stands to suffer the most from it in her day-to-day life, because her office already has a private bathroom, and the other trans people who already use the bathroom at the Capitol are lower in status than her, and therefore likely do not have private bathrooms. I understand the desire to look like she's rising above it. I understand why she would do that. I do think no matter what, that the Fox News coverage of her would have looked essentially the same as it already does right now. They're accusing her of having sparked this bathroom debate, even though, again, she has not even started working yet. All she's done is just existed and be a trans woman and get elected. They are misgendering and dead-naming her on Fox News. And just the same as I understood but disagreed very heavily with some of the decisions that I think were made in the interest of electability in Kamala Harris's run for president, I also can understand and see why she thinks it makes her more electable or approachable or bipartisan or whatever to just kind of do what a lot of people are seeing as immediately rolling over. But I don't want to sit here and criticize her for this too harshly, because I think Sarah McBride is going to have a horrible time in Congress and be terribly discriminated against, and that this, unfortunately, feels like the tip of the iceberg. And though she may continue to try to suffer that indignity with a smile and grace, there is truly not a level of indignity that these Republicans will not expect that grace about, and then even though they get it, they will paint her as if she has been kicking and screaming this whole time when she hasn't. But the people who I will outright say that I want to see kicking and screaming and that I am frustrated not to be able to fully expect and trust will kick and scream about this are all of the cisgender Democrats in Congress. So all of them. Every Democrat should speak about this, I think. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was the first I saw, and I think she did a fantastic job, rightfully framing this as an issue that only pretends to be about the safety of women and girls, while also exposing them to genital inspections just to participate in public life. I was also pleasantly surprised by John Fetterman, who tweeted, "There's no job I'm afraid to lose if it requires me to degrade anyone. If that's a defining issue for a voter, there will be a different candidate. We have a bathroom in my office that anybody is welcome to use, including Representative-elect Sarah McBride." Somehow Fetterman was one of the first to truly throw down like that. I wish that I could be confident that the majority of Democrats will follow this lead, but so many Democrats are terrified to be vocal in favor of trans people and trans rights because it's easier for some reason just to let the Republicans control the conversation about it because the Democrats don't want to risk looking scoldy. Personally, I think the time for worrying about looking scoldy is over. Trans rights are non-negotiable. They are human rights, and this bathroom bill also functions very, very similar to the way that many of the sports bans have been conceived as well. Something that happens because of an unfounded and irrational hatred of someone. And often, in the case of the sports bans, a child, a transgender child, that makes the Republicans so obscenely angry that they bend entire legislation to further that hatred. When someone is that far from being reasonable, I think not scolding them for it is ridiculous. They have proven again and again that they have no interest in being polite, and when it comes to defending the right of my transgender siblings to exist in public, to be part of society, to be safe and protected and valued, I have no interest in remaining polite either. These people are being cruel to trans people, adults and children, congresswomen and grade schoolers, and they're fucking freaks. They are mean and they are wrong, and I have no interest in allowing them to think that people who value empathy or kindness would ever think otherwise of them. I have no interest in allowing them the delusion that I find their opinions worth hearing or their hatred worth internalizing. Bathroom bills are getting worse, and they will continue to get worse. They likely would have continued to get much worse under Republican rule even without Sarah McBride's election, but she has served as a catalyst for all this to make its way onto a very national stage. And I say national because these things are happening on a state-by-state and city-by-city basis already. One in Texas apparently now even involving a bounty, so that a trans person would owe more than $10,000 if they were caught in a bathroom someone didn't think they should be in. Which, straight to fucking hell. Anybody who gets a penny of any money from that. If literally any trans person targeted by this even has enough to pay any of that, I can't even call it the word restitution. Like, it's just, oh my god. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate everybody who voted for this kind of shit. I hate everybody who will vote for this kind of shit. And I know I do say in my videos fairly often that I am not the ideal source for certain topics, but I truly do feel like I am not the ideal source for trans rights news, and especially not regarding new legislation. But I do follow quite a few trans people who I do think are excellent sources for this, including Aaron Reed, who is the fiance of Montana State Representative Zoe Zaffer, the trans woman in Montana's state Congress who was silenced in 2023 for speaking out against a restrictive trans bill. Zoe Zaffer also won re-election this November, and she will be sent back to her state's capital. And while she's not in as high of a position or in as high notoriety as Sarah McBride is, I just wanted to talk about Zoe Zaffer for a second because she is so incredibly cool and badass, and she has been so strong on trans rights since being elected. I wish that we had had the chance to send her to big Congress as well. But I've been following Zoe and her fiancé Aaron since Zoe was silenced and censured in 2023, and Aaron's reporting was super helpful today in keeping track of everything that was going on, and has been for the last couple of weeks as well. And has been for the last couple of years that I followed her as well. I follow her on Blue Sky, and you should too. I'll link her in the description below. I also follow Julia Serrano, who wrote an article in 2021 that lays out even more than I'm going to get into in this video. Like I said, I want to express to you, though, why you should start caring about these attempts to try to push people out of public life now if you haven't already, because these attempts are already happening, and they are exhausting and pernicious, and it is our job, as the people who the transphobes are pretending to speak for, to speak out against how wrong they're being. Julia's article lays out not just the data showing that there is in fact no evidence of a rash of transgender bathroom predators, but she also links all of this to claims in the 70s and 80s that gay people were groomers and trying to recruit children. She writes, "It was only during the 2000s, just as said claims were losing their effectiveness against gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, that religious right organizations shifted their efforts towards targeting trans people instead." She points to an article from Media Matters for America called 15 Experts Debunk Right-Wing Transgender Bathroom Myth from 2014, and the byline, which reads, "Experts in 12 states, including law enforcement officials, government employees, and advocates for victims of sexual assault, have debunked the right-wing myth that sexual predators will exploit transgender non-discrimination laws to sneak into women's restrooms, calling the myth baseless and beyond spacious." And she also says, "While there is no empirical evidence to indicate that transgender people pose any kind of threat to cisgender people in public bathrooms, the reverse is not true. That is to say, transgender people are routinely harassed and even assaulted by cis people in such settings." And one of the pieces of data that she uses to back it up has some of the following figures from a survey in 2015. Nearly 1/4 of respondents said that somebody had questioned or challenged their presence in a restroom in the past year. Also, in that year, nearly 1 in 10 respondents reported that somebody had denied them access to a bathroom. 1 in 8, 12%, were verbally harassed, physically attacked, or sexually assaulted when using a bathroom. More than half of the people asked avoided using a bathroom in the last year because they were afraid of having problems. And if you are cisgender and you haven't really sat with that yet, if you haven't really wondered what it might be like to not be able to just go use a bathroom in public without it being a whole ordeal, these bathroom bans might seem very abstract to you if you haven't sat with that yet. And if you don't care about sports, maybe the same thing is happening, but about a sports ban or about participation in a competition is similar. Something you know on a cerebral level is bad, but you just aren't currently seeing as a big deal. But we have treated bathroom bans like a big deal before. When North Carolina passed its bathroom ban in 2016, it was actually deeply controversial, to the point of people boycotting the entire state. But at some point, support for trans rights began to be treated more like an unspoken thing instead of a daily fight to be vocal about. And there is no fucking point in being supportive of trans people if it is unspoken. So I'm speaking. It's a big deal. It's time to treat this like a big deal. And I'm going to put in the timestamp for when I told the trans people who didn't want to have to watch this whole thing to skip to before I say it is time to start making a big deal about how trans people are just normal fucking people and how the people who demonize them are mean and weird and cruel. And I know that a lot of the people who have been watching my videos are already doing this, and I know, as I already said in the beginning, that a lot of you already are trans, and that tell people they're being mean to you is not necessarily useful advice, but also, if you do feel like doing that, I stand with you. I'll be doing that too on your behalf. And especially to those of you who skipped right to here just because you wanted a little reassurance about all of this and you didn't want to have to deal with the rest of it. Hey, I love you. You are a part of my community. You are part of my family. I want you in my bathroom and at my table and in my neighborhood. And even though the people who say that they don't want that are very loud and very hateful, they are not the only people who get a say. I am here with you. I will remain here with you. And I'm so sorry that it's so shitty. But I love you. I'll talk to you again soon.